Welcome to Synergy Practices Podcast.
Synergy Practices Podcast, Red Card segment. My name is Darwin Navarrete. I'm joined by Artin Safarian and Sasha Hawatpal. On today's Red Card segment, gentlemen, we had a call from a doctor that is actually in Georgia. They're interested in opening a practice, but here's the thing. The practice right now is a bank with a vault. It's a freestanding bank, and the doctor is interested in converting the freestanding bank into a practice. She called wanting to specifically know, if I do this, if I start this, what could the red card issues, scenarios possibly present while I'm going through with this? Sasha, what do you think?
Yeah, it's something that we have a lot of experience with. I want to start with that. It's not unheard of to convert a bank into a different type of business. Art and I have done banks into dental offices, banks into medical offices, banks even into vet offices. So right off the bat, I want our listeners out there to know it's not impossible to convert a bank into a different type of business. But let's jump into what she was looking for, and that's what we're going to speak about. What were the potential red cards, if you will, before she purchases this what I assume was a couple $1 million purchase in Georgia. So when you're considering, anytime you're considering purchasing a commercial structure, there's a lot of things you got to look at. And I'm sure we've talked about in the past. I'm sure we'll talk about in the future. Big things are the roof, exterior, and services. Services being your electrical, your mechanical, and this sounds like it would be a given. Plumbing would always, but there are buildings that have septic. There are buildings that have city water connections. So the big things to look out for are exterior, roof, services. Now, when you start looking at a bank, then you have to even add more to that list. Banks, as everyone knows, but they forget until you mention it to them, they've got large walk-in vaults. Vaults that were built structurally with the building at the time. You can't, Art's looking at me laughing. You can't slide them out of the door.
Well, they're built not to be broken into. Right, so you gotta
vaults even.
They're built not to be broken into. So, that's where you're going to.
Right, they're built not to be broken into and not to be walked away with. So, whenever you're go ahead, Art. Yeah. But whenever you're considering a bank, that large vault is something that when you ask me, Sasha, what's the first thing you think about when I tell you I'm considering buying a bank? I'm thinking that vault first and foremost. Secondly, probably the doors. But let's start there with the vault. Like Art said, it's meant not to be broken into. It's meant not to be moved. The costs associated with removing a bank, especially in this situation where the doctor, she's looking at a freestanding structure, I'm going to have to probably remove some of the structural wall to drag this safe out piece by piece. That's another thing people don't understand. These safes got to be taken apart and then remove these huge, I don't even know, thousands of pounds need to be dragged out of the space. So the costs associated with removing the vault are extensive. There are options with the vault. So what we have done in the past, and I'm going to let Art chime in here in a second about a specific project we did that we turned into an orthodontist's office. You can leave the vault. Art, you want to explain why you can leave the vault and what you can do with it?
Yeah, first and foremost, I don't want to scare anyone about, going into a building that's already a bank. It's been done, like Sasha said in the beginning. It's always going to be done. It's a freestanding building. As long as the numbers make sense from an investment standpoint, purchasing an existing structure that's a bank to convert into a dental office is a normal thing. But he hit right on it. One of the first red flags is to know if there's a vault, which if there is a vault, you want to know where it is and how big it is. And the second thing is you have to look to see if from a design perspective, what do you want to do to the vault? Because if you end up demoing the vault, depending on the size of the vault, it can cost anywhere from $40,000 to $50,000 to just demo the vault, right? Which already now takes your cost pretty high up. Now, in the past, we have designed offices that, we utilize the vault. We just remove the door of the vault. Believe it or not, just removing the door of the vault can also cost about $5,000-$6,000. So it's by no means, that much less expensive. The demo cost is pretty high because you have to remove it, take it somewhere.
I've been there during the demo. It's a
pretty heavy doors. But yeah, once you remove the door, now you can utilize that room in multiple ways. So we have turned vaults into storages, which is probably one of the easiest and the best things to do because storages don't require a lot of electrical and things. things like that. And remember what I said, vaults are made not to be broken into. So the reason why there's a problem is because you can't take an electrical line into it. I can't dig through it. I can't take plumbing under. I can't take anything over. So it becomes tough, to penetrate a vault. So, that's the easiest thing, is to turn it into storage. Now, I've also turned vaults into like offices or consult rooms, if and only if I can come up with a way to take some ventilation in them. So there is air conditioning, there's air, and it's not congested in there. So, we've done that before. What we can't do and, harder to do is, and I've had drawings where, I'm looking at a bank that's, someone put in a mechanical closet in there. Well, that's almost like you're demoing the vault. You may as well spend $50,000 demoing the vault, because if I have to take my mechanical lines all in the vault, I'm already penetrating and going through it.
It's not going to work.
Yeah, and that's one of the, red cards, is strictly the vault. The second things is the exterior of the freestanding building, like Sasha mentioned. Parking, you want to look to see if there is a drive-through, what you need to do to the drive-through, or are you going to keep it the same way it is. Lighting on the outside you want to look at, because it is a freestanding building. So you want to make sure you're looking at all that.
And talking about parking, just going a little deeper into that, architecturally, what affects parking when you're building a structure is the zoning and what the building is going to be used for. Banks generally do not have high occupancy loads. So whereas if you're a pediatric office, an ortho office, you might not have the sufficient parking you need for your business. So in this case, this being a populated area, Georgia, that was an issue for her. There was only 2 handicap spaces and 5 parking spaces available. And considering her staff was going to take 3 or 4 of those, it didn't leave a lot of parking left for her.
Yeah,
customers.
That could be problematic. Yeah. The second thing, I want to kind of switch gears, since we're talking about converting a bank into a dental practice. There's also another situation where I'm sure some listeners are saying or thinking, my practice is going to be on top of a bank. What are some red cards there, right? So if you're going in a space that's on top of a bank, you also have to look at some things a little bit deeper, a lot closer. Currently, I have 2 projects that are like that. So again, the first thing I got to look at is, when you're on top of a bank, is if there is a vault and where the vault is located for the bank, because that is an area I am not going to be able to drill. So the question is, why do we drill? Plumbing, water, gravity goes down. I got to go under, which means I have to go inside the bank to run your plumbing lines, right? So if the bank's vault falls in a bad area where you're putting operatory treatment rooms, lab, or sterilization, or a bathroom, that means I have to go drill in the vault. Well, guess what?
Not going to happen.
Not going to happen. The bank is not going to give you permission to do that, right? That's number one. Number two, you got to look to see how this affects your cost, because anytime you're on top of a bank, jewelry store, or any expensive store like that, what is the landlord or your tenant or your neighbor going to make you do? They're going to make you hire security so that the contractors can go under the space after hours to work there. Because I'm not going to be drilling and running your plumbing lines during the time the bank is operational. They're having customers come and go. They're going to say, I need you to do it at night, which is normal. But now they're going to say, because we're a bank, there is money involved, there's expensive stuff, you need to make sure you hire a security guard to watch that. Now, depending on the size of the space, you're looking at a 1-2 week consistently, maybe 7 to 12 days of work that you are paying a security or 1 or 2 security guards to be there just to watch over what's production. So it kind of adds cost. So now you're increasing cost of your build out cost technically. And the other thing you want to look at is drive-throughs. If you're on a bank and on top of a drive-through of a bank, guess what? The drive-through is open to the outside, right? Which means it's not a heated space, right? So another location where we might have an issue with running plumbing lines, water lines. If I go under in the drive-through ceiling and it's not heated, you run your water line, it can freeze in the wintertime. So Then the question comes in, what are we doing? Are we going to heat wrap it? Can we even run plumbing there? Should we run plumbing there? That becomes a more of an engineering question where, more study needs to be done. But it is a red flag or a red card. You want to definitely look at it, know that you're going to have this situation, and then analyze it a lot better before you decide if you want to move in and continue, or not.
So, quick question about being in a building with a bank. Is it only a concern when you're directly above a bank, or it's still a concern when you're any floor of a building? Let's say you're in a 6-story building, you're on the 5th floor, ground floor is the bank.
Yeah, well, no, if you're not directly above the bank, I don't think there's a concern. But I do want to, we mentioned bank because the segment talks about bank. There's a lot of other things. Sasha, you and I had a project 4 or 5 years ago where we were on top of a skiff. Remember that?
Oh,
project?
yeah.
We were on top of a skiff, and skiff is a very, very highly secured area.
Yeah, it's basically a server room with secure files that are traveling through this server relay point. So it's about as safe as a vault, if not more.
Yeah, I mean, there's like personal meetings in the skiff and things like that. So it's completely sealed. And, the funny thing is, well, not funny, but like the interesting thing is nobody caught it until we almost didn't catch it either. We were in the space, we were coming down, we're like, well, what's downstairs? They're like, it's a skiff. I'm like, wait a minute.
Well, skiffs aren't announced on purpose. They're supposed to be a confidential, secure facility. So
correct. So, but the moral of the story is you find things out by asking questions. The more questions you ask, the more answers you get. The more answers you get, you kind of put 2 and 2 together. It's got to kind of make sense logically before you move forward. Yeah, so the moral of the story is not a bank. It's a bank, a skiff, jewelry store, any place that can have a safe or any type of secure anywhere where you can't penetrate.
So, yeah, in this case, she was able to avoid any red cards by calling the right people. So, no red cards on this one, guys.
Well, good. And that's the whole goal that I actually wanted to ask is don't get scared, because we have doctors that are building in all of these places, especially if it's the right location and it's going to make sense for your business. Teaming up with an expert that can bring a lot of this information to you is the way to go.
Yeah, and I'm going to add one more thing. A lot of people want to make this a yes or no thing, or can I build or can I not build thing. For me, when I'm looking into this, it's never should I build or should I not, or can I build or can I not. It's more understanding what it requires to build, and if I still like it, I come up with a way to do it, because now I know all the problems. Which means, okay, if I was gonna buy this, let's look at this building for the lady we were just discussing, right? I was looking at this building. It's a freestanding building. The bank, let's assume Sasha mentioned a couple of $1 million. Let's just say the sell price was $2 million, right? Now, when I analyze this and I'm looking at this, I'm like, okay, my construction I thought was going to be $300,000, but now because of the what do you call it, the vault and stuff like that, it's now going to be $400,000 because I want to remove the vault. I don't want to deal with it, right? Now, can I go back to them and say, instead of buying this at $2 million, I'll buy it from you at 1.8 or 1.85 or 1.9? It's not that I can't do it. It's just that I want to cover my costs that I just found out about in order to do it, right? So a lot of people will look at this and say, no, I'm not doing it. That's it, right? This is too costly. Whereas if I'm involved in a deal, I just go back to the seller and I say, look, here's what I found out based on my, study period, and this is what's going to happen. Either move the vault, and I'll buy it from you at $2 million, or if I have to move the vault, I'm buying it from you at 1.88.
Absolutely.
Right? So that it's not a black and white yes, no, because that's how deals are made.
Commercial real estate deals are customizable.
Sure.
We've mentioned it multiple times in multiple podcasts. Just thought to
That's correct.
reiterate that.
That's correct.
Wonderful. All right, folks. Well, thanks for checking out Red Card segment powered by Arminco Inc. If you haven't checked out our previous episodes, please do so. Download all of our previous episodes. You'll see the title of each one. Search Synergy Practices Podcast, now available to download on Apple, Google, and Spotify. Synergy Practices Podcast, Red Card segment.